Now we move on to the fourth factor important for the rise of environmental policy, the new generation of rights, the collective rights regarding the environment. Traditionally, positive law deals with conflicts between individuals. This begins in the ancient times with the Roman law and is accentuated by the French Revolution on the 18th century. So our first rights are first generation rights inherent to the individuals. The second generation rights are those who seek to ensure the conditions for the entire exercise of the first generation rights. They mean by that the socio-economic and cultural rights. They still have the individual as a holder, but the state has obligations in those second generation rights. Since the significant changes in the period post-Second World War, in the evolution of rights, we speak of the third and fourth generation of rights. Here, in these new generations, the holder of rights is no longer the individual, but collectivities, nations, ethnic groups, and the humanity itself. They are the called collective rights. And the rights related to the environment belong to this new generation of rights, the collective rights. In Brazil and in some other countries, there is a particular understanding of collective rights inspired by Italian legal writers. Nowadays, it is usual to admit two kinds of collective rights, those being the homogeneous individual rights, as it's said in the Brazilian and Iberian American jargon, and the diffuse rights. The homogeneous individual rights, as said in the Brazilian and Iberian American jargon, are divisible and to which the members of specific classes are entitled. For example, cars recall. If a certain type of car of a certain group or year has a defective part, every owner of this kind of car is entitled to substitute this defective part. He has to do it individually, but this is a collective right to all this group of determinate people, the people who bought this kind of car. The diffuse rights are indivisible, and to which indefinite classes of people are entitled. The environment is a particular category of the diffuse rights. How are they? The diffuse rights are public, are collective, are indivisible, and they belong to the whole community. The diffuse rights are not subject to exclusive use or appropriation. Damages to diffuse rights are not measured by the individual harm. The benefiting class is indeterminate. It's all the community. The environmental institutions are grounded on these new rights and also in the extension of the human rights to the environmental issues. Regarding the law and regarding these new rights, the environmental problems present many new challenges for the lawmakers and for the policymakers too. They raise questions that we don't have already good answers for them. For instance, who can exactly speak for the future generations? How can the future generations be represented? And in which way we can assess their interests? Intergenerational rights are often understood as collective rights. And they are. The relationship between the past, the present, and the future generations is another dimension of environmental justice that is increasingly considered, for example, in the context of climate change. Our own past and contemporary lifestyles are characterized by the consumption of fossil fuels and high greenhouse gases emissions. This consumption have led and will further lead to injustice toward future generations, because they might possibly not be able to enjoy a clean and healthy environment anymore, or at least with the quality as we are enjoying right now. So, if we think about justice between generations and the intergenerational rights regarding the environment, we need to start making different decisions and thinking in new ways to give good answers for the future generations. This means that the current generations of decision makers is responsible for not imposing risks, hazards, and dangers on future generations who cannot be held accountable for greenhouse gas emissions from the past. Protecting the rights of future generations means reshaping many features of the current political systems and reshaping institutions. So, dear students, in this first class, our goal was to provide you an overview on the important factors that led to institutionalization of the environmental policy. We observed that so many huge changes took place in a rather short period of time, less than 3 decades. Many processes during these 3 decades were brought to international attention and began to be discussed. Exponential growth of the population and of the economy, overconsumption of environmental goods, pollution, energy crisis, the need to energy transitions, risks, disasters, the emergence of global environmental problems, the need to address these issues in different spheres of action, national and international. And we saw also that proposals and commitments were built upon very new ideas, such as, for instance, sustainable development. From all this overall picture, we are also already able to identify some of the actors that belong to this new environmental policy arena. Civil society organizations, scientists, the private sector, national governments, international organizations, international civil organizations, domestic ones, and the next generations. We stated the process of creation of many new institutions, meaning by that new rules of the game. Environmental rights, new classes of claimants, the recognition of the environment as collective good that pertains to everybody and are not divisible, are not individually appropriated. Finally, it was also brought to attention the need to build capacities for dealing with environmental issues, as well the state, as well the civil society. And we also stated that environmental issues were not only pertaining to the natural environment, to nature. Environmental issues are intertwined to social, economic, and political issues, bringing to light the theme of environmental justice. By now, according to an United Nations report from 2019, 176 countries have already environmental framework laws. 150 countries have established environmental protections or the right to a healthy environment in their constitutions, making the right to the environment a constitutional right. 164 countries have created cabinet-level bodies responsible for environmental protection. This is our big picture. In the next class, we will explore the content of some terms that we used today, especially environmental policy, environmental governance, sustainability, and sustainable development. Please bring your questions and share among us your comments, your doubts, your critical remarks, and your proposals. See you in the next class.